Hi, everyone. Well, we're going to get started. I hope you can hear me well. My name is Ellen Baxt, and I work with Eric, who looks like some of you know, at the CUNY Central Office, and we work with the ESL and adult literacy programs on 14 CUNY campuses. I work with the case managers who work with the students at the campuses to help with things like exploring careers, going to college, things like that. And so today we're going to be, I'm just looking at the chat. Today we're going to be thinking about what is college really like. I think often students are really surprised in their first semester and even their second semester in college, what it's really like. And so I'm going to share with you some information so that you can feel a little more prepared. So I'm going to share my screen. What are college classes really like? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We have a really nice small group today. And so I'm going to invite you to stay muted, but to unmute yourself when you want to ask a question. We have a lot of information that I'm going to share. And so it's going to be easier if we just talk about questions as they come up instead of waiting until the end. So since we have a small group, I want you to unmute yourself and respond to this question. What are some differences you think there are between the classes you're taking now and college classes? So whether you're in an ESL class or a high school equivalency class, you're getting ready for your exam, what do you think are the differences between that and college classes? So you can just unmute yourself and share your ideas.
Can I say it?
Mm-hmm.
Like ESL class is a basic level where we need to make it that base form foundation firm or stronger. Once we build that strong, we can move on to next level further and further.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you take college classes for credit, the assumption is your English is already strong, you understand everything, you know how to write. And so those foundations are not really, like, they're not really talked about in your classes, right? And so that's why it's important to get that foundation really strong before you go into your credit classes. What are some other differences?
Independent learning.
Can you say that again?
It's kind of independent learning.
Yes, that's really important. What do you mean by that?
You have to read a lot and understand what you read. And if by some means you run into difficulty, then you'll go to your professor.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
good to build that base of understanding at the level we are at now before entering college.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said a bunch of really important points there. So one is the volume of work, right? Like if you're in a literature class, it's very common to be assigned a whole book a week. Right? Like you're expected to read a whole book a week or maybe 2 weeks if it's kind of a long book. So there's just a lot, like the volume of what you're expected to do is huge. You're expected to do a lot of work independently. So in the class you're in now, maybe you have some homework, maybe you don't really have homework. In college, you have even more work outside of class than the amount of time that you spend in class.
Yes.
So people talk about how if you look at your schedule for college classes, and let's say you have one class and it meets maybe 4 hours a week, that you should expect to spend more than twice that amount of time for that one class outside of class. So doing all that big volume of reading, writing essays, studying, doing all those things, it's a lot more time outside of class than inside of class. And that's a big difference, right? That's like a big thing, a big change to get accustomed to, is how much work you need to do independently. Now, one thing I'll say is that it is independent, it's independent from the professor, but one thing that really helps a lot is making a study group with other students in your class.
Yes.
So you, right, like you have to like use your social skills, meet people, which can be difficult, like depending on your personality, but it's really a tool to be successful in college, is to like get some buddies in your class. You don't have to become best friends, but like this is like your team, right? And you can meet after class, you can do your homework together, you can study together. And some of the students I know who are really successful in college, this is what they do. They're like, okay, I come to class, like, who are my people? Let me find some people. We're gonna make a group and we're gonna meet together, we're gonna study together, and we're gonna support each other. And you also said talk to the professor if you have trouble. And so that's really important too. The professor isn't necessarily going to reach out to you, right? That's part of like that whole independence piece, is the professor doesn't reach out to you. You are expected, if you are having difficulty, that it's on you to go to the professor and to say, I'm having some difficulty, can you help me with this? Or even if like you got an assignment you don't really understand, you're like, I know the professor explained this in class, I don't really understand what we're supposed to do. You can go and ask the professor for clarification, and that's on you. Any other ideas about differences?
If I'm not wrong, is it true that compared with the college, we must take as a full student? Is that true?
You
We
must say
have
that
no
again. You
any
must take what?
as a full credit student. We have no option to
That's
be
a
a
great
part-time.
That's a very good question. So part of that relates to the cost of tuition, and part of that relates to kind of like your time, right? Like how much time you have to devote to classes. So CUNY has what's called a flat fee for 12 credits or more. That's considered full time. 12 credits is usually around 4 classes. It depends. Most classes are worth 3 credits. Some are more and some are less. But 12 credits is usually around 4 classes, and that's considered full-time. There's a flat rate, so one fee for if you're taking 12 credits or more. If you're taking fewer than 12 credits, then you pay by the credit. So depending on how many credits is, that's how you would calculate your fee. There's some like special programs that where you have to be a full-time student to be in the program. Like I believe ASAP is one that you have to be a full-time student. But I always tell students that you don't want to fail classes, right? So one big difference between high school and college that I often think about is the money. If you go to a public high school, you're not paying money to go to school. You're not paying money for your classes. When you go to college, you're paying. So you're either paying with your own money or you're paying with financial aid, money from the government or a loan. And you get a certain amount. So the financial aid covers a certain number of classes. And if you fail classes and you have to retake them, at some point, the financial aid is not going to cover all of those classes. So I always tell students to like really think about what's realistic for you and how many classes, how many credits you can take and be successful. You don't want to take on too much. So, you know, I think the colleges sometimes like they really want students to like move through quickly, right? So you can finish college and get onto your career. And so sometimes they're really encouraging students to take 15 credits. I always tell students, especially in the first semester, don't take 15. If you want to be a full-time student, take 12 credits and see how that goes.
Can you
So that's
take
really
one
important.
class
You
at
don't
a
want to
time?
fail classes.
Can you take one class or you have to take
Yes,
multiple
you can
classes?
absolutely take one class. Yeah. So students who are not receiving financial aid, either students who are undocumented or students who are not financially eligible and you're paying out of pocket, you may only be able to take one class, right? And or your time, right? Like you may feel like, okay, let me just take one class. Let me see how that goes, right? So that's a totally fine thing to do. You can absolutely just take one class to start with. So I'm gonna share my screen again. Where did my presentation? Here it is, I think. Okay, so we talked about this. Has anyone seen this word before?
Syllabus.
Yes.
Yes. What do you think that means? Does anyone have a guess?
Pronunciation.
Pronunciation? No, it's not pronunciation. That's a good guess though.
Syllabus
It
name.
Might
is
be thinking of
the layout,
syllable.
the layout of the courses that's going to be taken.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So it's kind of your roadmap of the class. It's usually given by professors on the first day of class, and it has really, really important information that you need for the whole semester. So one way that we're gonna think about what is college really like is to look at some sample syllabi. Syllabi is the plural of syllabus. So we're gonna look at two different ones that are both for English classes at BMCC. And I chose two that are like similar in some ways because it's the same kind of class, but you can kind of see the professor's personality come out a little bit in what they're expecting from students. And so we're gonna look at both just so you can kind of get a sense of what they're both like. So let me find them and then I'm gonna share my screen. Okay, so there is. Okay, can everybody see, can you see that syllabus? on the
Yes.
screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so we're basically just gonna go through it and see what's here and see what we can learn about college classes from reading this syllabus. So I wanna just focus on this part at the very top of the page, this part that I highlighted. What kind of information is on the top of the page here?
The subject, the professor's name, the starting date. It tells you the section. I think it would be like the paper, where the section is and the number, that would be the paper. It tells you the hours of class, how many credit, and it tells you what semesters it fall, spring, but this one is fall.
Yeah. So it has, so first I'm gonna start up here with just like the title of the class. So every college class has two ways that it's referred to. It's the name of the course. So this one is college composition. And it's also the department and the course number. So English is the department, 101 is the course number. So some people might call this class English 101. Some people might call it college composition. Those are both the same thing, but you'll hear both of them in different situations. So section, it says section 1022. Some college classes are enormous classes because everyone has to take English 101. It's a requirement for basically every student. But they can't fit like, 10,000 students in the same class. So they have different groups, different classes. So those are called sections. This is when the class meets. So it's Tuesday and Friday from 10 to 11:40 a.m. This is the building. Bitterman Hall is a building at BMCC, and this is the room number. This is the professor, the semester. And now, so we see it's an hour and 40 minutes twice a week. I'm not sure how that adds up to 4 hours.
How long a one semester lasts?
I think Tuesday 2 hours, Friday 2 hours. That's why I think in a week it's 4 hours.
Yeah. So anyway, so normally this would add up to what it says here. And then this is the credits. So when every class holds a certain number of credits, you accumulate credits and you need a certain number to graduate. So most associate's degrees, which are the degrees offered at community colleges, you need around 60 credits in total. So this one carries 3 credits. Most college classes carry 3 credits, some a little more, some a little less. Now, does anyone, so here's the office, right? Like if you want to go visit the professor, there's their phone number and there's the email. Does anyone know what office hours means?
Time it
Yes.
open to the time it close.
That means if you have questions, you want to talk with professors, so this time is the right time.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So the professor, for every class, the professor reserves hours for those students from that class to come and talk to them. So if you want to talk to them, you either go at that time or you contact the professor to say, oh, I can't come during your office hours, but I'd like to come speak to you. Is there another time that we can meet? All right, so that all of that information is on most syllabi. It should be like right up there at the top of the page.
I have a question with the credits third. Does it count or credit English 101? I heard it has no credit.
Yes, English 101 does carry credits. Now, some classes, like once you earn your high school equivalency diploma, there's really a difference. There's kind of a gap between high school level work and college level work. So once you earn your diploma, the college may determine, okay, you're ready to read those college textbooks. You're ready to read all those novels and everything you need to do. They might say, you know what, you need a little bit more support. You need to get a little more preparation in before you're ready for college level work. So you may need to take a class or do a program that does not have credit because it's not at that college level yet. But English 101 is like a true college level credit bearing class. All right, let me try to go back.
Is that what they call a college readiness class?
No, I mean, the remedial classes, the ones that are not.
Yeah, medial. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Question.
Yes.
I've heard about the CUNY Start.
Yes.
How do you join that?
Okay, so I used to work for CUNY Start. I definitely recommend the program. It is one way of getting in those college preparation courses so that once you get into your credit level classes, you know how to write an essay, you know how to like read those textbooks. If you just Google CUNY Start, or if you go to the CUNY website and you look up CUNY Start, you'll find the information. It's on campuses in all 5 boroughs. And it's really intensive preparation. So if once you earn your diploma, if either the college says you should do CUNY Start, or if you just feel like, you know what, I feel like I still need some more preparation, then I would recommend you contact CUNY Start. Okay, so let me go back to share. Okay. here we go. All right, so now we're gonna get into the meat of it. What does prerequisite mean?
Requirements, prerequisites.
So you'll see this word a lot when you're registering for college classes.
It is before college start, we need to pass prerequisite class.
Yes, exactly. So college classes often kind of like come in a certain order, right? So for example, you're a math major. You're not going to take algebra 3 before you take algebra 1, right? So a prerequisite is a class you need to take or something you need to do, like pass an exam, before you can do this class that you're looking at. That's a prerequisite. It happens before. So it's pre means before, requisite means it's required. This syllabus is a few years old. We can see it's from 2017. Instead of these exams, the college uses like a number of different factors to determine what your level is. So they'll look at your task scores, your high school grades, if you took any regents, all kinds of things to see what your level will be. So then we have the description. So English composition is the standard 3-credit 4-hour freshman writing course. What does freshman mean?
New student.
First year go to college.
Yeah,
First year.
your first year, right? Yeah.
Yes.
The course introduces students to academic writing. So the reason why English 101 college composition is required is because it prepares you for that. It is a credit class, but it really lays the foundation of reading and writing that you're going to have to do throughout like all of your classes in college. By its conclusion, students will be ready for English 201. What does by its conclusion mean?
After
Well,
finish,
Close to its conclusion.
By
When
the
it's
end of
finished.
it, right?
Yeah.
So it means like
Yeah.
once you're done with this, you'll be ready for English 201 and for the writing that you'll be asked to do in advanced courses. Students completing English 101 will have mastered the fundamentals of college level reading and writing, including developing a thesis-driven response to the writing of others. Does anyone know what a thesis is?
topic
Understanding.
sentence, main
Understanding
idea.
of others' writing.
Say that again?
The understanding of someone else writing.
It's actually more than that. So it includes that, but it
And
also means that you're taking a position,
yes.
right? So like maybe you read something, you have to say like, oh, do I agree with this? Do I disagree with it? And what's my evidence?
Yeah.
What's my, like, what claim am I making? What do I believe and why?
What evidence do you gather?
So that's very important. It's a really big part of college writing is what's your thesis? What's your point? What are you trying to say and why?
Yeah.
So based on the writing of others and following the basic conventions of citation and documentation. So that means that often you need to use quotes. You're taking the language that someone else, that the writer used, but you're doing it in a proper academic way. So you're saying who said this, where they said it, and you're documenting it in a kind of formula, like in a very particular way. They will have practiced what Mike Rose calls habits of mind, necessary for success in college and in the larger world. Summarizing. So what is summarizing?
Remember.
To
Conclusion.
Summarize something.
Right, main idea
Yes.
overall.
Main idea.
So maybe you read 10 pages and you can summarize it in one paragraph. You can
Yep.
say, okay, I read all of this. Here's what it's basically about. Classifying, so that has to do with like making categories of things.
Comparing.
Comparing and contrasting, so saying how something is similar and different, and
Yes.
analyzing.
Analyzing.
Students will be introduced to basic research methods and MLA documentation and complete a research project. So usually that means you need to go to the library and you need to find sources and you need to find information on a topic.
Yeah.
And then you're like, it says the research methods and documentation. So you're documenting, okay, this person said this, that person said that, and you're kind of putting it all together in this research. Students are required to take a departmental final exam that requires the composition of a 500-word thesis driven. So again, that idea that I have, this is my claim, this is what I believe and why. Comparing and contrasting two essays. So they might be two essays with opposing views. It might say this person believes this person believes something different. And which one do I believe?
Okay.
So that's kind of like the overall purpose of the course, right? That you need to do college level reading and writing. You're gonna be able to make a thesis in college essays, analyze text, and cite your sources or your evidence. Okay, so that's a big picture. Does anyone have any questions about that part? Okay, we're gonna move on. So, required texts. What does text mean?
The book itself, the page.
Letters.
Yes. So what you're reading, the text is what you're reading. So it says essays will be posted on our Blackboard site as PDFs or web links. So in some classes, you have to buy a book. In this class, there's no book. Instead, the reading comes to you electronically through Blackboard. So Blackboard is a software that once you see that, if you don't know what Blackboard is, you say like, oh, wow, okay, I have to figure out what Blackboard is. How do I get on it? How do I use it? Because that's where I'm gonna have to go to get the texts for the class. Then it says you will be required to have paper copies of these readings with you in class on the days they will be discussed. Printing is available on campus in computer labs if needed. Okay, so that means you're gonna have to go to the computer lab, figure out where the computer lab is, go to the computer lab, get onto Blackboard and print the texts. Not right before the class because you need time to read them, right? So at some point, maybe a week before the class, you're gonna print them out, you're gonna read them. You can take notes, right? Because you printed them out. So you can take notes right on it. And then you're gonna bring it to class with you. Also required is a dictionary. This says of at least 70,000 terms, and it gives a recommended dictionary. Not all classes will be like this, but I would say probably it's likely that sometime while you're in college, some of your courses will require Blackboard, which is a software. So that's an important thing to know. The campus has computer labs. You can print there. They also tend to give workshops maybe on Blackboard, right? So you're like, okay, I'm new here. I don't know how to use this software. And so maybe they have a workshop and you say, okay, I better go. And that way I'll learn how to use it. So the other required materials are a notebook or binder with removable pages, a folder to hold and organize readings and returned work, BM activated college email address that you check regularly. This is very important. Whatever email address the college has for you, the professor might email you, right? The professor might cancel class because they have an emergency or who knows what, right? And so it's very, very important that you check that college email regularly so you don't miss out on anything. And access to the Blackboard site. Some professors will be like this and they'll say, you know, I want you to have these specific kinds of materials. Others won't. They'll just say like, the way you organize it, that's up to you, right? And some may have a specific way they want you to do it. These are some resources the professor put in here. Oh, I clicked that by accident. Don't open that. Hold on a minute. Okay. These are resources to help you write those essays, MLA formatting, that's how to cite other sources. So these are for you to use to help you. Okay. Usually a syllabus has the attendance policy. And all of the CUNY colleges also have their own attendance policy. So it's very important at the beginning of the class, figure out, okay, what is the attendance policy? So it says attendance is mandatory. What does mandatory mean?
Have to.
Everyday class.
You have to, right? You have to go. You have to go to class.
Yes.
You know, the reason that attendance is mandatory is because the professor assigned some reading, you did the reading, but when you go to class, the professor is going to give you all kinds of like background information, and there's going to be discussion and like all kinds of things that are not in the reading. So, you know, you can't think like, oh, I did the reading, I don't have to go to class. No. Attendance is mandatory because there's an attendance policy, but it's also mandatory because so much happens during class. That's important to know. So it says
You get more detail.
yes, more details, more, you know, like history, connections to other things, in addition to, of course, like discussion with other students. So I'm gonna, since it says see policy below, I'm gonna jump right now to the attendance policy and then we'll go back to what comes next. So attendance. All right. So come to class on time, do not leave early, and avoid missing class unless you absolutely must. Personally, I would say that goes for any class, right? You don't want to come late. You don't want to leave early, and you don't want to miss class because a lot happens. And if you have too many of those things, then you're gonna be be kicked out of the class. So at BMCC, the maximum number of absences is limited to 1 more hour than the hours a class meets in 1 week. Okay, 1 more hour than the hours a class meets in 1 week. This is a 4-hour class, so you would be allowed 5 hours of absence, not 5 days of class, 5 hours of absence. That would be equivalent to 2.5 classes. To simplify, I allow 3 absences. Once you exceed, what does exceed mean?
Go over.
More than.
Once you go above 3 absences, your grade will be dropped by a letter grade for each class missed. Okay, it will be dropped, it'll go down by a letter grade for each class missed. So let's say, you know, you've been doing the reading, you participate in class, you've been doing the assignment, so you're like pretty much getting an A. If you miss if you have been absent, let's say 4, right? If you've missed 4 classes, then you're already now going from an A down to a B. If you miss another class, you're going down to a C.
Wow.
Absence in excess, so more than 6, is grounds for an F or a WU grade. An F is fail. WU is unofficial withdrawal. That means if you have more than 6 absences, you're not in the class anymore. And in terms of your transcript and your grades, a WU becomes an F. So attendance is very serious. And I want to say that just because 3 absences are allowed doesn't mean that you should have 3 absences, right? Like so much happens in a college class. It's very fast paced. You really don't want to miss any classes, right? Like that's just some like wacky emergency that you know, that could not be prevented, but it's really hard to catch up when you miss a class. So, you know, things are just going to go much better for you if you just don't miss classes, because it's really hard to get caught up in college classes. Chronic lateness will also affect your grade. 3 tardies, which also means late, will count as 1 absent. When students regularly walk into the classroom late, it is seriously disruptive to the work that the other students and myself are doing. If you do arrive late, please enter the classroom as quietly as possible. You will be counted absent if you are more than 20 minutes late. So I think 20 minutes is pretty generous, but again, I would say like, you don't want to be that person that everyone is always like, oh, this person always comes late. Oh, it's always really distracting, right? You just want to go on time. If you miss class, you are responsible for making up any work that you may have missed. That means the professor will not come to you and will not say, oh, you missed class. Like, let me give you the handout. Let me let me explain what you missed. That's not going to happen. You miss class. You need to contact a classmate. In addition to like seeing about the assignments, you want to find out, okay, what did you talk about? Like, what did I miss? What's the content that I missed? And you want to take some notes about that so that you have that, right? If you remember at the beginning, they said there's an exam at the end of class. So you want to make sure that even if you miss class, you still have that material. If you find yourself missing more than the allotted hours of class time, it may be that you have simply taken on too much, right? So I talked about that at the beginning. You don't want to try to do too much because you want to be successful, right? There is no shame or embarrassment in needing to drop a class and retake it when you are better able to benefit from it. So this means if, let's say your work schedule changes and you didn't really have any say in it and you realize, you know what, I can't take this class anymore. It's not going to work for me. You can officially withdraw. If you officially withdraw, like nothing bad happens to your transcript. It just sort of disappears. But if it's been 5, 6, 7 absences, that's when, and you don't really say anything, that's when it becomes an F.
But how does that affect your like if you have financial aid or scholarship, how does that affect it if you drop a class?
You know, I'm not exactly sure if you're going from like full-time to part-time. That's a good question to ask a college advisor or to ask in the financial aid office. I'm not sure about that.
Okay. How long is each class? Like about 30, 45 minutes each or longer?
So some classes are an hour. It could be anywhere from like an hour to 2 hours is pretty common. And the classes might be twice a week. Some
Okay.
classes meet for a longer period of time once a week. So it is possible to have like a 3-hour class once a week. I always think it's preferable to have a class that meets, if your schedule permits it, to have a class that meets more than once a week, because it kind of just like helps. If a whole week goes by between classes, it's just sort of hard to like stay fresh and keep that in your mind. If your schedule allows it, I think it's preferable to have classes that meet more than once a week.
Yep.
Okay, let me come back in here. Okay. Cell phones must be turned off during class time. You will be asked to leave and counted absent if your phone rings in class. No texting. All right, so this professor is like, here's my policy. I'm laying it out there. If your phone rings, I ask you to leave and you're going to be counted absent. You must act and speak respectfully to all other students and to myself, regardless of individual differences. If you have a problem with subject matter or someone in this class, you should discuss it with me privately. Please, no heckling of other students, eye rolling, under breath muttering, etc. When you make a comment in class, remember that your fellow students come from all sorts of backgrounds. You are not speaking at your own dinner table or to friends. Audience matters. So what do you all think about that?
It's true. Respect.
Yeah, respect.
Yeah.
And it feels
Sure.
to me like the professor is like, has maybe had some hard experiences with students in class in the past, right?
Mm-hmm.
In general, refrain from refrain from disruptive behavior in the classroom. I decide what is disruptive. So, you know, in a college class, like the professor has the authority, right? So you never really know what someone is going to consider disruptive, and you just always want to be as respectful as possible. Professors also are in a position to write you a recommendation letter for a program, or, you know, like they could become your mentor. So like you always want to really treat everyone in the class, including the professor, as professionals, right? And just like be respectful. I recognize that you may come to class hungry, but please no smelly or noisy foods and nothing that requires utensils. You may have a lidded drink, a drink with a lid. Please dispose of your garbage when you leave the classroom. Do not get up in the middle of class to dispose of your garbage, but do not leave a mess behind. Okay, so like these are some of those class policies. Okay, if you do not care about the class material, and that may be the case, pretend that you do care about the material. Participate, and you may find that you have changed your mind. If you still do not care about the material, please do not reveal this information to me. So, you know, you're going to have required classes in college. Some of them you might not be all that interested in. You're also going to have some professors who are better than other professors, you know, like that's life. So you just kind of have to get through it, you know. And some are going to be great, you know, some are going to be really great and some are going to be less great. I encourage you to oh, wait, let's go back up. Okay, we finished because we skipped a part. Okay. Reading is integral. What does integral mean?
Build. Right. When you're reading, you build in your vocabulary.
Expected.
Reading Integral. It's
Integral to the writing you will be doing in class. What do you think that means?
integral. Is the same as
It plays a strong part.
Yeah.
it's the same.
So it's saying in the writing that you do in class, in part, depends on the reading, right? The reading is a very important part of getting to the writing. You should come to class having read any assigned material carefully and prepared to discuss it. I would say you should read the assigned reading maybe 3 or 4 times so that when you go, you're prepared to talk about it. If the professor asks you a question, you're prepared to answer it, that you don't have to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Discussion is a crucial aspect of learning in this course, and I assume that students who participate in class discussion have prepared more diligently for class than those who sit silently. So maybe you're a person who's not really that comfortable speaking in class, but speaking in class is an important part of college in the United States. So if you're not speaking in class, this professor is going to think, oh, I guess that student is not really very well prepared. Right? So it's important to do the reading, think about it, prepare for speaking, and also to have the courage to speak in class. The more you start speaking in class, the easier it comes. You know, when I was in college, I always felt a little intimidated by speaking in class. I always felt like, oh, is my idea stupid? Like, oh, this is so obvious. Maybe it's not right, da, da, da. But like the more you do it, the more comfortable you are and the less nervous you are when you just kind of like make a practice. You force yourself, okay. I would force myself. I'd say, okay, in every class, I have to say at least one thing out loud. Right? Like it doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be the most brilliant thing, but okay, I'm just going to say one thing out loud in every class. You will learn more and advance your thinking and your classmates' thinking by participating more in discussion. Expect to write a lot, both in class and out of class. You must complete 3 formal papers of varying lengths along with drafts. So that means you're going to have 3 essays, different lengths, and they're going to be drafts. So maybe you do an outline, then you do a first draft, maybe you turn that in, you get feedback on it, you read what the professor wrote, and then you do another draft thinking about the professor's comments and making changes based on them. Rather than ask that you buy an anthology, I will post the essay readings for this class on Blackboard. You must print them out. You must learn to and regularly check Blackboard and your BMCC email address. As for printing, there are computer labs all over campus. You will be expected to come to class with the printed reading, which you have actually read by the day they are listed on the syllabus. I should not have to remind you about a reading. So the professors, you know, they give you the syllabus. So I'll just kind of show you. So the schedule of assignments is usually on the syllabus. So the professor will not write the assignment on the board or say, okay, next time I want you to have read da da da, because they already included it on the syllabus. So this is like your key to the class. You don't want to lose your syllabus, right? Because this is like everything is here. Everything that you need is in this document. And so the professor's like, okay, I'm not going to talk about the assignment because they all know because they have the syllabus. Okay, so we're gonna skip ahead a little bit. Well, this part's important. communication. I encourage you to discuss all problems and issues you may be having with the class with me. If you are struggling, please do not hide in a corner or disappear or skip multiple days of class. If a serious illness or other domestic issues are affecting your work or attendance, please feel comfortable communicating with me. I will work with you if I can. Generally, there is a solution and I am here to help you find it, but I cannot help if I do not know what the problem is or if I'm only made aware after accumulated missed work or classes. So you should really talk to a professor as soon as you know I'm having a problem. I respond to all emails within 24 hours. I encourage you to come to my office hours. So the professor is sitting in their office waiting for students to come. So, you know, you want to take advantage of that time. Generally, it's best to make an appointment. That way I know you are coming and will prioritize your time over students who just show up. So this professor is saying, if you tell me I want to come during your office hours next Tuesday, then the professor will make time for you, prioritize you over other students who did not let the professor know that they were going to show up. Right? So it's just a matter of their time. So usually syllabi also have the grading policy. So that is what's counted into the grade and how each thing, the percent that it's counted in the grade. So this says 5% class participation, weekly micro themes. So every Tuesday, you will submit in hard copy. What does hard copy mean?
The original?
Paper.
On paper, right? So not electronically, you'll hand in on paper a micro theme or a mini essay that's in response to a question of the week and based on that week's readings. Micro themes will begin short, a paragraph, and increase in length over the course of the semester. The goal is to explore the meanings of the readings via writing and to practice academic writing skills in a low stakes way with frequent feedback. So when you have a class where you turn something in every week, it really helps you improve. There's some classes where you just have like one big paper at the end and you don't really have assignments that lead up to it. It's very hard to improve that way because you don't get feedback. So when a class has something that you turn in every week, it's really good. It's really helpful for like your development because every week you're doing some work and you're getting some feedback on it. And so that really helps you develop. 2 formal papers, 15% each. So these will be writing assignments based on our course readings. They will develop through a series of steps from pre-writing activities to drafts to review, revision, and editing. So there are many steps. Revisions are to be no less than 3 full double-spaced typed pages. Do you know what double-spaced means? Is this page here, is this double-spaced?
Like upside.
Yes.
And
The amount of lines you
before
skip to
also.
go to the next sentence.
This one is single-spaced.
No?
So it's single-spaced because there isn't like a big space between these lines. Double-spaced is when, and you can format it this way on the computer, there's like a line of white space between every line of text. So it's just kind of more spread out. And it's easier for the professor to make written comments when it's double spaced. That's usually why they do it that way. Failure to complete drafts will result in failure of the essay. Okay, so that means the professor is setting up this process. And the purpose of doing it this way is so that you can kind of start small and build up your skills over time. The professor is saying if you skip some of those steps, if you don't do the drafts, you will fail the essay. The writing and revision process is integral to developing your writing skills, and that is the purpose of the class. Final drafts must follow the manuscript guidelines. So you have to do it in a particular format that the professor tells you. Late papers will be penalized by a full letter grade for each day it is late. Okay? If it's like a B paper, you did like a pretty good job, but you turned it in 2 days late, you're getting a D on it. Okay. So all of these details are so important, and professors really, they're like very clear in what the expectations are. So when you get that syllabus, you want to read every line. You might want to underline some things or highlight some things, right? Because things like that are super important. Documented essays, 20%. This project is a thesis-driven essay that requires incorporation of independent research. So that means you're going to go to the you have a topic, you're going to go to the library, you're going to get some materials from the library, you're going to read them, and you're going to have a thesis on this material that you've read. Students will submit evidence of library research and research notes that will then be responsibly and effectively integrated into an essay to help develop a convincing argument related to 2 assigned readings. So it sounds like the professor is going to say, okay, here are 2 assigned readings. You're going to read these. Maybe we talk about them in class. Now, for this documented essay, you're going to go to the library, find more readings that are related to this topic, and then you're going to write this essay that shows that you've done some library research. Again, this particular documentation called MLA documentation, and it's going to have to be at least 4 pages long. The assignment will require various steps in addition to drafts and revision to help you achieve the final product. You are required to complete all of these steps. And this professor seems like the kind of person that they say, if this is required, it means if you don't do it, probably your grade is going to come down. Final department exam is worth 30%. You will be asked to write a thesis-driven essay, drawing upon and citing John Berger's Manhattan and Colson Whitehead's city limits to support your position. So some exams are done in class and some are take-home exams. I'm guessing this is probably in class, which means that you go to class and you see this assignment and you have to do the essay right then and there in class without revision, right? Because it's an exam. So that's different from the previous essays. Failure to submit all the required work may result in failure to pass the course, even if you pass the final exam. No incompletes will be given. So an incomplete is, for some courses, let's say you did most of the work, but you didn't do all the work. And the professor, and the course ends, and the professor gives you a grade of incomplete. That means the professor is going to give you a chance to turn in that work, even though it's extremely late. And once you do, you'll be given a grade for the course. This professor is saying, I don't do incompletes. If you do not turn all the work, you may fail the class. So then there are a bunch of college policies. One is on if you have a disability, you can get an accommodation if you go to the Office of Disability Services. Plagiarism, what is plagiarism?
Copy somebody else's work.
Yeah. When you say it's your own, right? You can quote somebody's work, right? You can say, oh, so-and-so said da 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 da. That's fine and that's good. That's expected in college. But if you take someone else's work and you put your name on it, then that's plagiarism. So there's a policy on plagiarism. This is information about like what the goals of the class are, what they want you to learn. Learning outcomes, that's kind of the same thing, what you're expected to learn. And then here are the assignments. So again, there's no book. You would have to go to Blackboard, which is that software on the computer. And probably when you log in, it will connect like your name with the classes you're taking. And so you would go and find your class and you would find your assignments. The professor will post the readings there. Some professors also will post discussions there. So they might post a question like, oh, what did you think about this week's reading? Or why do you think the author said da 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 da? The schedule is on here if there are any canceled classes or holidays or the college is closed, things like that. So this is both the reading and also the assignments and when they're due. And that's it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, yes, it was.
Okay. That's interesting.
So what do you all think? What thoughts are you having about that?
As it tells me that as for me, I can only take one class at a time.
Good. I think that's a fine way to start, you know,
Yes,
just take one
because
class.
otherwise I'm gonna be late all the time.
Yeah. So that's a fine way to go, you know,
Yeah, because
taking
the-
one class at a time and like being really successful in it is wonderful, you know. Students, you know, a lot of students do tend to fail some classes, especially in their first semester or their first year. It's not the end of the world, but if you fail a lot of classes, then your financial aid isn't going to cover it. You're going to be wasting money. That's going to be kind of a nightmare, you know.
yeah.
I have another syllabus that I'm not going to go through in as much detail, but we can take a look and see how it's similar and how it's different from that other one. So
Question.
yeah.
Being a part of the CUNY Start, does it get you prepared like this for?
That's a good question. So CUNY Start is very different. Like in CUNY Start is more similar to the class you're in now than it is to college. It's a very supportive program. You're with one group of students all the time. It's preparing you for the college level work. There's a lot of discussion. The teachers will like remind you of assignments. So a lot of that stuff is different. It's kind of a smaller, more supportive environment than college classes. So yeah, it is different in that way. Okay, so I'm gonna show you just kind of quickly, I'm gonna show you this other syllabus. So let me share this. Here it is. So this is the same course. It's also an English 101 class, different professor. We can see it has like the same kind of information at the top. So course description. The course description is pretty similar to the course description in the other one. I like that right up front, this professor talks about the skills that you're going to be developing. Narration, you tell a story. exposition, explain an idea, persuasion, convincing the reader, rhetorical analysis, synthesis. So like right up front, they're like, these are the goals of the class. There's also a grading policy. So that is laid out right here. No late papers, so they're giving their policy on that. Required reading. So similar to the other class, there's no textbook. This one says you'll receive a course pack. So a course pack means that the professor took all of these essays or all of these readings, and they went and they kind of like made a book out of all of those different readings, made of Xerox copies. That's either like bound on the end, or maybe it's in a binder, and they give you the course pack. So for this class, instead of going to Blackboard, they gave you a hard copy of it. It says readings will also be available for download on Blackboard, but you must have them printed out in class. Attendance and lateness policy. No electronics. Some of those sort of classroom customs that the other professor talked about. Don't be disruptive, don't eat in class. Now this professor says, I may grant extensions on essays, meaning give you more time, but please ask me at least 2 days before an assignment is due. So you can't come in the day it's due and say, I need more time. But this professor is saying, like the last professor said, if you have a problem, let me know early, right? And we can talk about it and we can figure out a plan. This professor says there may be extra credit opportunities given if you have submitted all of your other work to the best of your ability already. Reasons for extra credit include a serious extended illness, a major life change like giving birth, or a death in the family that keeps you from attending class, but you have already made up the required work. So this is if you're like worried about your grade, you wanna have an opportunity to raise your grade. And if you've had some emergency situations, then the professor may be willing to do that. So this professor is saying, okay, what is the learning outcome? What is the learning goal? And how am I going to measure that? How am I going to know that you're learning that? So there are a number of essays for this course as well. 4 thesis-driven essays, including drafts. Looks like there's going to be a film. In addition to readings, there's going to be a film that you would have to analyze. There's a final exam. And this is a policy on plagiarism, which is very serious. You can get kicked out of college for plagiarism. So it's very important that you know how to cite your sources properly, use quotes, say this is a person who said this, and that all the other work is assumed to be your own ideas. Plagiarism, helpful resources. So every campus has tutoring, a writing center. So maybe you went and you talked to the professor, but you just feel like, I really need help. When I write my essays, I really need help. And so there's a writing center. You can go to the writing center every time you write an essay. You could go to the writing center and say, okay, I have this assignment. I need some help with this. Office of Students with Disabilities. So this says how the professor would like to be addressed, how they would like to be called, and how they do not want to be called. Okay, they're saying you should address me as Professor Kudish, Professor, or Ms. That's Ms. Kudish. I do not like to be called Miss, Ma'am, Miss Kudish, or Mrs. Kudish. Or Professor, right?
Hello?
Yes.
Sorry.
Emails should be professionally written. That means polite, clear, you proofread it so there are no mistakes. It should be sent from a professional email address. It should really be sent from your school email address. That's usually preferable. Include your name, what class you're in. And this professor says, I may not answer emails that do not fit the criteria above. Okay, so they're saying you need to say, Dear Professor Kudish, da 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 da, sincerely. Please do not ask me to do anything ASAP, as soon as possible. Okay, this professor is saying, if you don't address me this way, I may not answer your email. This is really what I expect. So after you write it, then you want to reread it. You want to see, okay, did I do it in the way that this professor asked me to communicate with them? If you ever feel that a grade is unfair, I encourage you to talk to me about it. I will do my best to explain my comments to you, and in many cases will offer to reread and reevaluate your work. So the professor saying, if you feel like that you don't deserve the grade you got, I usually am willing to read it again and see if I agree with the grade that I gave you. Please know from the beginning that while we try to maintain a comfortable class environment at all times, discussions in college courses can sometimes be uncomfortable, especially for some people who are not used to class discussions and argumentation. So sometimes in a class discussion, someone says da 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 da, and then someone else says, you know, I disagree with that. That is very acceptable in a college class, right? And so it's important to know in a college environment how, in like using what words, should you disagree? What does it mean? How do you conduct a respectful disagreement, right? Or for people who are especially sensitive to talking about controversial subjects like sex, religion, different cultures, politics, etc. Right? So in a lot of literature classes, you're going to have, or social studies classes, all kinds of classes, you're going to have discussions about possibly sensitive topics. And that's part of, you know, one of the great things about college is that you get exposed to new ideas, right? Like you leave your family, you leave your friends, you leave your neighborhood, you go somewhere else where all these people are reading all kinds of things and thinking about all kinds of ideas. And you go to class and you might hear ideas that you really never heard before. And that's really an amazing thing about college. How to pass this class. So here's the attendance policy. This says that this professor gives surprise quizzes. So without warning, you'll come in, nice to see you all, take out a piece of paper, you're gonna have a quiz today. So the quiz is probably gonna be about the reading. And so it's important to do the reading, so you're prepared for that. Be positive, engaged, open-minded. Be respectful of other people. Here are the assignments, right? The schedule, the date, the reading assignment, and when the writing assignments are due. Right, so again, there are papers and drafts and peer reviews. So it looks like in this class, it's usually 1 week that's spent on each piece of reading, right? 2 classes in 1 week. So most of them are being discussed during both classes of that week. And the final exam is in class. So, so that's another one, right? Like it's for the same class. Some things are similar, some things are different. But a syllabus pretty much always has the course information, the date, the time, where it meets, the office hours, lists all of the assignments, usually the grading policy, and sort of like preferences of the professor, how they like to be communicated with, and the assignments, right? Class by class, when the assignments are due and what are the assignments, where you can get the reading and all of those things. So, questions, thoughts?
Is
Was this surprising to you?
No,
No?
no. Is there any class that carry more than 3 credits?
Yes, some science classes that have a lab component might carry 4 credits. So sometimes in a science class, you might have like 3 hours of what's called lecture, which is basically the classroom part. Then you might have another like 3 hours of lab, where like you go into a science lab and you're doing experiments and things like that. Sometimes they're 4 credits.
Okay. I'd rather do the 4 credits so I can finish fast.
Yeah, they're not that many. Most classes are 3 credits, but you might find some that are 4 credits.
Okay. Well,
Any other thoughts? Does this make you scared about college?
no, no, it's that I work various hours. I'm always late, so I have to find the ones that would best for me.
Yes. So you want to think about, okay, what's my good time? Am I a morning person? Am I a night person? Am I a Saturday person? The classes, most of the colleges have classes like on all different schedules, you know? So you want to think, okay, what's the best time for me? Right?
Yeah.
Keeping in mind like transportation, rush hour, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah. Sleep, because if you don't sleep, you can't remember anything.
Yes.
It sounds like when about college, what I just got right now, the experience, I feel like there's a lot of rules.
There are a lot of rules.
There's a lot of rules, and I feel
There's a particular culture in college, right? It's like a very business-like, hierarchical, right? Hierarchy means like there's someone at the top and there are people below that, right? It's a very formal environment. It's not a formal hierarchical environment is not one that I particularly enjoy. Like me personally, right? Like I prefer a more informal environment. But when you go to college, you're saying, here are the rules in this place. And if my goal is to earn a degree, then I know I have to play by these rules. It does not mean I have to play by these rules in every area of my life. But when I go to college, I need to play by these rules. If the professor says I need to call them Professor Kudish, then I need to call them Professor Kudish.
do you get a penalty if you can't pronounce it the right way?
No, I mean, you should ask. You should definitely ask.
Right, they're asking you of how they want it be named, but you know, like I have sometimes a strong accent.
I don't know that I pronounced it correctly, you know, like that was a new name for me. I'd never seen that name before, you know, but you can always say like, Professor, how is your name pronounced? you know. So there are a lot of rules. I specifically chose some syllabi that were like kind of intense. But that's pretty typical also, you know. Professors, you know, I mean, professors have a certain status, right? And so, you know, they kind of like to be like, it's kind of the culture, you know, in this environment. It's like a very rules-oriented culture. And to be honest, it eliminates a lot of people who aren't able to play by those rules.
Yeah.
And that's really sad, you know? Like, I wish that college were an environment that were like, that was just kind of more accepting of a bigger variety of people, you know?
But why can't you just say sir?
If
It's a lot of
you-
discipline.
you
And
said, can you say sir to a professor? Is that what you said?
Yes.
It's more so things that are the way that it's generally appropriate to call professors is Professor so-and-so. They might be called Dr. so-and-so if they have a PhD. That's kind of a safe way to go. You know, like their title is professor. Unless they tell you otherwise. Some other professor might say like, my name's Susan, call me Susan.
Oh.
You know? You are going to find you may find professors who are less formal, but college in general is a very formal environment. And that's a really big difference, right? Like when you go to college, it's a formal environment and you just have to do it, you know?
But you can just say professor, right?
so question.
Yeah, you could say professor. Mm-hmm.
I know you mentioned a couple of times about taking one class if you know whatever's convenience for you.
Mm-hmm.
What about if you're in the middle of the class and you feel like you're overwhelmed and you wanna, you know, drop the class? Do they hold like I don't know exactly how one class lasts. Does it last 2 months or 3 months in one class? Or and if you do decide to, let's just say in the middle of it, you want to drop off because you can't handle it, do you feel like did they I guess I'm trying, do they wait for you for that
So
class?
that's a great question. Every semester, the college has a certain date by which you can do an unofficial withdrawal. It's usually like maybe a few weeks to a month into the semester. The semester is usually going to be maybe around 14 weeks. So let's say, for example, it starts in maybe the middle of September and it goes to the end of December or the middle of December, maybe. So they're usually about 3 months. So there's a date by which you can do an unofficial withdrawal. If you want to withdraw past that date, then it's going to be an unofficial withdrawal, which becomes an F on your transcript. So in the first like 2 weeks of the class, that's when you want to figure out, okay, can I do this? Do I need to withdraw?
So what happens to if you pay for that class and in 2 weeks that you decide, okay, I don't think
I think if you unofficially withdraw, then I think you get a refund. They usually have a schedule of by this date you get 50% refund, by this date you get 25% refund. Yeah.
Okay.
And you should be able to find that on the college website or even on the calendar. We could try and go really quickly. Let me just share my screen. We can try and go to the BMCC website and just see if we can find that information, just as an example. Okay, so if we go to about BMCC, no, let's see, academics. So we want to find, the calendar sometimes. That's event calendar. I don't see it. So we're gonna put it in here in the search. Whoops, hold on.
Miss Ellen, I'm sorry. I don't know if I'm supposed to call you Miss Ellen or Professor Ellen.
Oh, you can just call me Ellen.
I have to be excused because I'm gonna get ready to take a test for I gotta
Okay.
go to college, but I noticed that these classes are being recorded. You guys are gonna
Yes.
send it to us so we could go over it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much for all your
Sure.
help, and thank you guys. Have a great day, everybody.
You too.
You too.
Can everyone see the calendar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you see my screen? Okay. So you'll see, right, this was for the summer. So let's see, we'll go to fall. Okay, so this is when these dates in August. So like right now this is when you can register for classes. Not sure what e-permit is. So this is the last day to drop with a 100% refund. Okay, so before classes begin on the following day, August 25th, on August 24th, that's the last day you can drop a class and get 100% refund. Then like a week later, last day to drop was 75% refund. A few days later, you can start dropping classes, right? So you see like it has this schedule of when you can drop. And then I think WN means if you never showed up to a class, like you're getting kicked out of the class by this date. And then, of course, withdrawal period begins. Okay. Okay, last day. Oh, that seems late. This is a little surprising to me. This says that you basically have 2 months to withdraw. Eric, does that seem like what it's saying to you? I don't know if Eric is here. But it looks like by December 13th, they're saying that's the last day to withdraw and get a grade of withdraw. So that's pretty long. So anyway, but that's all laid out, right? Like if you go to the college's calendar, you'll see all of that information. All right, I'm just gonna look up through the chat.
Well, how long is a semester? Like, how does that work? When
It's
they say semester?
usually around 14 weeks.
14 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know, some like in the spring semester, you have spring break in there, you know, but like usually it looked like from this schedule that it starts in late August and it goes through mid-December. So like,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So when you say it's like spring break, do you have to take classes, or like if you want to take classes, or just like straight spring break? You don't have to do anything.
So the college has certain vacation schedules. So for example, let me see. Let me try and share this again. Okay, so it looks like in the fall semester, classes start August 25th.
Okay.
This Friday, there are no classes. I guess for Labor Day, there are no classes. The 7th and 8th, I think that might be Rosh Hashanah, that there are no classes.
Okay.
Right, so you can see all of that, and that will be on your syllabus also. It will say,
Oh, okay.
Sometimes the colleges also do this funny thing where they say, the college was closed on Monday, and so Tuesday is on a Monday schedule. They do this like funny thing. But all of that should be on your syllabus.
Okay. Mhm.
Miss Ellen,
Yes.
is there like a seminar or a workshop that actually helps in applying for the college application? Like it gives us a walkthrough?
Yeah, so we actually did a workshop on the CUNY application process, and are you in our Google Classroom?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so Eric, if you're here, could you Eric might be gone already. Let me try to put a link to the Google Classroom. So we have a recorded workshop on applying to CUNY. So I'm gonna try and put the link in here.
So CUNY colleges are city colleges or?
Yes.
Oh, okay, okay.
It's part of the City University of New York.
Okay.
I forget how I invite somebody. Let me see.
How long do they normally take to respond?
Here we go.
After application.
Hold on a minute. Invite link. Okay. So I'm going to put this in the chat. Okay, so if you click that link, you can join the Google Classroom, and in the Google Classroom is all of our recorded workshops. And we have one on applying to CUNY, and let me actually just share my screen and show you. Okay. Okay, so if we go to, I think it's in classwork. Okay, so it was one of our first ones, applying to CUNY. So here's a recording, and here's steps to applying to CUNY. Okay, so if you join the Google Classroom, you'll have access to all of this stuff.
Okay.
And we had, in the recording, you'll see, we had one of the admissions officers who works in the CUNY Central office, who is incredible and very supportive of our programs. She made the presentation on all the steps in the admissions process. And so you can watch the recording and learn all about how to do that. You can also talk to the case manager at your program. So you all have a case manager at your program. If you don't know who that person is, you can just ask your teacher, and that person can help you apply to CUNY also.
So when you apply to CUNY, how do you pick the college you want to go to, or they pick it?
So that's something that you do. So you can take into account location, right? Because you're going to be traveling there a lot. So you want to consider that. You also want to consider majors. So there are some majors that are offered at all the campuses. There are some majors that are really special, that are only offered at like one of the colleges, right? So you want to figure out what you want to study. And then let me show you something else real quick. If you go to cuny.edu, computer's a little bit slow, but it will get there. Okay, if you go to academics and then academic programs.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And you would be an undergraduate student. So you would click undergraduate program offerings. And then there's this great tool where you, do you know what major you're interested in?
Like nursing.
Yeah.
Nursing. Okay, so nursing is at lots of the campuses. So you could just put in nursing
Let's see.
and so it
Oh,
tells you which of the campuses offer a nursing program. Okay.
Do they give you the preference to do it online? To do classes online?
So with nursing, you really don't want to do it online, and I'm not sure. Like there may be some classes that you could do online, but you know, nursing is a really hands-on profession, and so it's something that like you want to be in the lab. You got to do your clinical hours. You have to be working with patients. There are other programs that have more classes online. My personal feeling is that people learn best from humans, right?
Yes.
In a space with other humans. There may be times in your life when like you're just not able to go to the campus, but there's so much that you get from being one, just like being near the person who is talking to you, but two, there are things on a college campus that you went to seek them out other places, you'd have to pay a lot of money for it. There's free counseling. There's a career center. There are student clubs. There's probably a nursing club, right? So there are all these things that you get from being there that you're not going to get otherwise. So there are a lot of online classes that may be the only way for some people, but if you can go in person, it's just it's a much richer experience if you're able to go in person.
Okay. When you start out, the first 2 years is what, a bachelor's?
It's an associate's degree.
So associates, and then after that, it's a bachelor's.
So what you would do is if you started at a community college, you would do an associate's degree, which it may take longer than 2 years, right? It may take 3 years. It's pretty common for it to take 3 years. And then if you wanted to do a bachelor's degree program, you would transfer to a senior college, right? So like, let's say you start out at the MCC and you earn an associate's degree, then you say, okay, I want to get a bachelor's degree. Okay, I'm going to transfer to Brooklyn College, or I'm going to transfer to Lehman, right? You transfer to a senior college and you apply to do a bachelor's degree program there.
Okay. And what's after that? Master's?
Master's, PhD, right?
Okay.
Like you could go all the way up.
Oh, okay.
Which takes a very long time.
No.
But you get a lot of school, right?
That's a lot of school.
Yeah.
So how can you do the bachelor's in less than 4 years? You couldn't increase
Not really. I mean, like if you could take classes in the summers, so people do that. But you know, it's like at least 120 credits. So that's just if you think about every class being worth 3 credits, that's a long time, right?
Well, you could
So
take
the people that teach you at college, they're all called professors. They're not called teachers.
Right. They're all called professors. Some are technically considered instructors, but you can call all of them professors.
So you're a professor?
I'm actually not a professor. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were. Okay.
Because I don't teach college classes.
Oh, okay.
Right? Like I work with this program, but I don't teach college classes.
Okay.
Each credit take 1 semester or less?
Each class you can do in 1 semester. There's some classes that are like a sequence of 2 semesters. So there's some classes that might be like anatomy and physiology 1, anatomy and physiology 2, right? But those are technically different classes.
Okay.
So those are 3 credits.
Class for 1 semester, pretty much.
And as you go on, like after you get your associates, you could still get financial aid, or it starts to like for the law. You can. Oh, okay. It depends on your grades, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, my friends.
Thank you so much. That was very helpful.
Yes, that's good.
You're
Thank
very
you.
welcome. So if you have questions about applying to college,
Mhm.
you should find out who the case manager in your program is, and you should talk to them because it's their job to help you do things like that.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
All right. Thanks for coming, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great
Thank
day.